Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Mikhail Peters. I almost thought about not recording today, but then I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna try to do it because I actually had a really good day yesterday and I kind of want to talk about that. And I'm also going to do an experiment with naming this something about Finnish people and seeing if, even though I'm not in Finland right now, that it picks up any traction. I actually had a really good email from somebody who asked me a really good question about like the US versus Finland, which I think I'll get into another time, but really I want to talk about how good my day was yesterday and why I'm going to talk about why I love Finnish people. Because I really like it's really funny because I kind of knew it would have been better for me to stay in Finland, but at that point I had already committed to my US job and I had worked there as an intern, and it just felt like everything was too set in stone that it was not appropriate really to turn back on that. So eventually, after working only for a few months, I started getting into like applying for PhD programs. I got admitted to one and I've now basically been admitted to one for, I don't know, 9 months, and it would be cool to do that more full time, but right now it's just like not the way things are. But yesterday I went to New York City, which I hate going to New York City because I find it incredibly sensory overload stimulating for me. So I'll do this thing where I just go on the train, go to the thing, and then get back on the train, and then just like not walk around too much more than other than what I actually have to do. So yesterday I went with my one friend who I studied with in Finland. We were both on the Fulbright scholarship together, studying at LUT in Lappeenranta, and doing our masters there. And he invited me like 4 months ago to go see Windows 95 Man, who performed in Eurovision. And I'll be honest, I don't know where I was in the US, and I did not watch this Eurovision, to be pretty honest. I watched the Eurovision the year before with my one Finnish friend, and I don't even remember what time of year it was. I'd have to look that up. But anyway, I just know I was like in Finland for 9 months in 2023, but in 2024 I was in Finland way less than 9 months. Okay. So I really love this concert so much, and this concert really helped me to remember why I love Finnish people. And so I'm going to talk about that today. Because really, like, the cool thing about this guy, whose name is actually Tamu, but whatever, which I just feel like is okay, there are a lot of stereotypical Finnish names, but this is definitely one of them. I think it's funny because I have this one friend, Tamu, who, like, grew up in Australia, and everybody would just call him Timu, and now it's like, no, that's the cheap website where you buy stuff that's not my name kind of thing, but it's funny. Anyway, so this guy was super cool. Like, I don't know, like, why was he cool? First off, it was very memey. Like, the whole, like, aura of this guy, right? Which, like, I totally dig that. Also, it was more like a DJ style, which, like, I love that as well. And it was really funny because, like, okay, I'm born in 95, so they had the Mr. Paperclip thing, like, from, I guess, Microsoft Word back in the day. And that was so funny because I remember Mr. Paperclip, like, when my dad would be doing work on the computer, and then I would come over and I'll be like, can you click on Mr. Paperclip? So, like, it was very nostalgic for me. So that was really cool. And, like, I don't know, it was just like, I enjoyed it, and I wasn't really expecting to enjoy it that much because I've been sort of in this, like, depressive phase where I just, like, don't want to do many things, and I'm just sort of low energy, and this, like, really gave me energy, and I was, like, really happy about it. And I knew, like, part of it was because it was making me very nostalgic for Finland, with the, I guess, ambiance of a Finnish guy, but also, like, just some of the songs, and it just reminded me of, like, having a good time in Finland, but, like, just the idea of me enjoying living in Finland. And one of the things I thought was really cool, because I started thinking about, like, being famous and how, like, with this channel, I'm, like, mini famous, right? Like, because, like, people contact me, they reach out to me, like, I get a lot of traction, and, like, I have fans, right? Like, that kind of makes you, like, a little bit famous. I don't even know if famous is really the right word, but, like, you have fans, so there's, like, an element of, like, your presence as somebody who does this thing for an audience is valued. And I started thinking about that, like, if I was a performer or something, or what if I ever actually, like, went into singing, and, like, what would that be like, and, like, would that be cool? And I started thinking also, like, about this one time my dad made this comment about, like, that probably is such a crazy feeling, like, being on stage and having all these people, like, watching you and like cheering for you and like loving what you're doing. And like, yeah, I started thinking about that. And I also started thinking about like, you have to be really, I guess, careful to be like stay humble in those situations. And I think that is something that people who have become really successful will talk about, because in order to keep growing and being successful, you like always have to stay humble. And I think the thing I really liked, so it was like Windows 95 Man, and then also Luna was the opener, and just like both of them, I'm getting this vibe that they're really appreciative to be there. It was both of their first times to the US, which I thought was really cool, and like you could tell they were excited. And it's just like, I don't know, like that just really made me happy. And I guess in some ways it's sort of weird, because like being an American and traveling, like there is sort of this like, whoa, you're American thing, like it's really a big deal somehow. Like I guess I was starting to sort of feel that from this, because it's like, wow, going to New York City, it's like such a big deal. Meanwhile, I grew up going to New York City and I hate it so I hate New York City. I'm there, like I've just been there too much. I started realizing like, okay, yes, I know people want to go there, but it is so disgusting. Like literally everything is so dirty. I saw a rat in the subway. I mean, that's normal, but like I had never seen one because I usually just walk everywhere. But I was trying to take the earlier train and it didn't work anyway because the train was late. Whatever, doesn't matter. But I'm just like, it's so disgusting here, and I like don't know why people like it. And I think this every time I go to New York. But it's interesting that, people like think it's the coolest thing ever and come there and are like, ooh. And so that was cool. And then also like afterwards we stayed after, and so like the friend who I went with, he ended up getting the last shirt. It was fine, whatever. I couldn't order one, and I could order one to where I live in Finland, so it's fine. But like he was just so cool. Like we talked to him after, and I was like, thank you, and then I was like, oh, I heard you say to somebody else, because he didn't announce this on the stage. I heard him say this to somebody like while we were waiting in line, that it's your first time in the US. And I'm like, how do you like it? Like, and I do this a lot too, like when I speak to Russian people, especially like a lot of the refugees who came to Finland, like, oh, how do you like Finland? And then, wait for them to respond, and all of them like it. And so he's like, oh, I love it, it's so cool. Okay, and this was the funniest thing, because he's like, because I knew exactly what he was talking about, where he's just like, it's so cool performing here, because we were also the first stop on the tour. It's like a 4-city tour. LA is one of them, so we'll see how that goes, because I was like, why, what's wrong with that? And then my friend's like, oh, the fires. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Duh. Like, I guess you'd have to change the venue, or depends where it was. But yeah, anyway, I know not everything is destroyed, but it's still pretty not a great situation. Yeah, anyway, I digress. So he's like explaining how he's like, like performing in front of Finnish people, like they're such a tough crowd, and you feel like you're at a funeral, because like they're just standing there like, and I'm like, no, I know what he means, because I would also find it so weird that like Finnish people drink so much alcohol and they still don't want to dance, and I'm like, isn't alcohol the thing that usually makes people want to dance? So it was really confusing to me. At the same time, I always felt really safe going to clubs in Finland, because I knew like no creepy men were going to try and grab me. I don't feel that way in the US. So I have largely avoided those kinds of activities my whole life. But that's one of the things I really like about Finland, is like I just feel very like safe and comfortable, and like I can go out and like enjoy myself and not worry about like having to defend myself against other people. So that's cool. But at the same time, I get what he was saying, where he's just like, they just like, they're not very involved. But he's like, Americans are so like, they're really into it and it's great. And I was like, yeah, like I knew what he meant. It was really cool. And then when we told him like, oh, we studied in Lappeenranta, and yeah, I don't know. It's not like we had a really long conversation with him, because obviously he had other people to talk to. And then we got a picture with him, which I think I'll like throw in some of the stuff from the concert, like just at the end of this video randomly. But it was so cool. Like really, like I had such a nice time. And like it really just made me like, and he was just so like humble, down to earth, chill. Like you could tell that it wasn't just like, oh, it was cool that he had, become like famous. It was like he like really just like loved what he was doing and how it impacted other people. In fact, there was this quote, and I think I will post this also, because I saw this as I was waiting for the train. I'll just probably stick the picture here. It says, one thing I am convinced more and more is true, and that is this: the only way to be truly happy is to make others happy. When you realize that and take advantage of the fact, everything is made perfect. And that was the vibe I got from this guy. Like, he was just so happy that his presence and his performance had given other people joy, that it wasn't about like the fame or the recognition. It was like he was really interested in like how what he was doing was making others happy. And I just totally felt that, and I was like, wow. And I'm like, this is why I love Finnish people. And then I was like, kind of got emotional because I was like, why am I here? And then I have the existential why am I in the US like every day thing because I don't like being here. But it's just like, I do feel like Finnish people are very genuine. Like, this is one thing, and this is actually something that, like, the second therapist I ever went to, but the one I went to when I was a teenager, I remember being like, I don't know why people like me, and she's like, because you're very genuine. And I agree that, especially among Americans, seems to be, like, a very rare trait. Like, people are very into appearing a certain way. This is something that drives me crazy about American culture, to be honest, and Finnish people, I mean, they're very sensitive around, like, how what they do affects other people and, like, the way they're perceived. Like, they want to be careful not to, like, throw this, like, I guess it's sort of like this very strong, like, individualism thing out there at people. Like, they'll answer you honestly. Like, I just feel like there's a great deal of, like, honesty and authenticity that just most people in society have. And again, it's like, obviously it's a society, there's room for variation, but I still feel like on average, like, this is the vibe I get from people, and maybe this just really, like, I can identify with this because it feels more, like, authentic to my own personality or views or values or whatever, and yeah, so that's why I like it. But really, like, I just felt very reminded of that at this thing, and I was just like, man, what am I doing here? And I've been having more of these crises. I'm like, look, it's been a year. I gave myself, actually, like, I renewed my residence permit for 6 months, and then I told myself if I still want to come back to Finland after that, I'll come back and renew it, which I did. Renew it for another year and a half, and then I got the PhD thing going, so then I renewed it for another 4 years. So technically, there is nothing preventing me from just going and being in Finland and just leaving the US forever. I think about it a lot. But yeah, so that's why I think Finnish people are cool. Like, I did this other video about why I love talking to Finnish people, which is one thing, but when I'm speaking more about the attributes of why I really like Finnish people, like, I feel like they mind their own business, they ask questions out of curiousness and, like, actually wanting to get to know you rather than trying to compare or judge themselves or compare themselves against you or judge you, which is what I feel like Americans do. And, like, I just find it very uncomfortable interacting with Americans, which again is why I get to, like, I spend a lot of time, like, alone in the US because I just don't particularly like the options for people I have to interact with. And I don't think you can make a generalization about this all the time, but I've also talked about this a little bit, like, I'm perceived as very, like, successful in the US, and in Finland, like, people don't care about that, right? Like, there is actually this big culture of humility. Like, if you think about, like, the whole thing where they're like, the CEO of a large company still takes the bus and walks around in normal clothes and doesn't need to buy, like, really bougie items to show off his wealth. Whereas in the US, I'd say it's the complete opposite. Like, people are very into displaying wealth, a lot of times displaying wealth that they don't even have, right? Like, living above their means. And I think when you think about the fact that the world, like, is the world, but really, like, in the US, like, everything is so around money, like, that is a very superficial concept, to be fair. And when I think about, like, why do I care about money at this point, it's not really because I, like, want things to look cool. It's, like, because I want this very specific thing, which is a house that happens to cost a lot of money and has happened to rise dramatically in terms of how much money it costs relative to how much people earn, a lot, in especially the last several years, but really the last decade or two after 2008. And it's unclear when or how that trend is going to reverse itself, and I'm in a position where I need a house now, right? So whatever. But then I'm like, well, if I go to Finland, whatever, I'll just live in an apartment, my apartment. But yeah, so I don't know, I just, like, have so much respect and admiration maybe for the, like, characteristics that Finnish culture embodies. And you even have, like, the whole sisu thing, right, where it's like, you know, just kind of, like, sucking it up and dealing with that. I think that's admirable. I think the one thing that I think can be difficult, and I'm not saying this is a negative, but I'm saying I've observed that this is difficult for Finnish people, is, like, this extreme self-reliance can sometimes make people feel very like, isolated or lonely or, like, hesitant to, like, reach out and ask for help. And sometimes I wish that's something that, like, I could see Finnish people feel more comfortable doing, because I think it's sad, like, when I, like, feel those things, because I can kind of tell. It actually reminds me a little bit of Japan. I can tell that I've had some interactions with people where, like, I can tell that these people are randomly interacting with me because they are experiencing such intense loneliness that, like, they just are desperate for an interaction. And it's, like, really sad, and that, like, really, really makes me sad. You know, I see this especially with a lot of, like, very elderly people, or sometimes the, like, random 40-year-old dude who decides to talk to me on the train, true story, and then invites me to the bar with him, and I'm like, thanks but no thanks. You know, and he's like a student, and I don't know, like there are these people. So again, I wish that could be a little bit different. In fact, I was just listening to a YouTube video this morning that was talking about fertility declining, and it was talking specifically about, like, you know, of course, the Nordic countries, and how getting these incentive programs in place doesn't necessarily make people, like, more willing to have kids, but a lot of what's happening is women are becoming very well educated and want somebody who's equally as educated as them. And I do see that probably being an issue in Finland, as women are becoming very, like, career-oriented, independent, and successful, like, as in a lot of places, but really especially in the Western world, so they're very, like, picky, I guess this is what they're saying about who they want to reproduce with. But anyway, I just found that interesting. So sometimes, like, I guess what I'm trying to get is this, like, loneliness issue that I see happening in Finland. Like, I really wish it could be changed a little bit and be the change you want to see in the world. No, but I don't know, like, that's the hard part, but at the same time, I feel like the, like, core of the values of Finnish people is really good, and I, like, really hope that at some point I will see this turn around a little bit where, like, people can feel maybe more, like, emotionally vulnerable with each other, because I really think that, like I said, like, being humble, being genuine and authentic, like, these really lie at the forefront of being able to behave that way with other people and in your relationships. So, you know, I hope that is something that will, like, change for Finnish society moving forward. Like, there's already, like, you know, more foreign people coming in, and people have all different opinions about that, but I wonder if some of that will, like, try to make people more open in some sort of way. So, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I really love talking to Finnish people. I was like, man, I wish I could just learn Finnish as well as I learned Russian, so I could just talk to people in Finnish and get, like, another flavor of interaction with people. And I decided, you know, it's probably my life goal at this point. And like all my other life goals, I'm sure I'll achieve it. So that'd be cool. So we'll see when that happens, because I'm not promising it will be soon, because that's a hard language. But yeah, so I'm going to leave it at that today. Why I love Finnish people, because I just really like the whole, like, personality, value, characteristic thing they have going on. And I feel very, like, fortunate and blessed and all these other positive things that I had the opportunity to go to Finland in the first place to study there, and that I was open to that opportunity, because it really did change my life. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, man, I would have had a house if I didn't do this, that, and the other thing. But I think the amount of joy, as I talk about a lot, I did experience a lot of suffering during the 2 years I was in Finland, because I learned a lot of really painful lessons, but it's also the greatest amount of joy that I've ever experienced in my life. And I think that this concert yesterday really helped me to remember that. And I hope that I continue to remember that as I move forward in my life and try to make more decisions about what my future is going to look like. So thanks to all the Finnish people who have contributed towards this opinion, because it was not just Windows 95 man. It was, like, other people I met also and talked to. And I have that vibe. So yeah, that's my thing for today. I'm going to try to show some of the stuff from the concert now, even if it's just pictures, because I got to check out the copyright stuff. It's very annoying. But that's everything. So until my next video, bye.